Hey guys, welcome back to my sewing room. Today I will be finally finishing up this crepe wedding dress in our DIY wedding dress series. I really like the way it turned out, and I had a lot of trial and error and practice and blood, sweat, and tears that went into this dress. If you guys are interested in purchasing this dress or purchasing the sewing pattern or the sewing pattern in a combination with the fabrics, you guys can go ahead and check the description box below. And if you guys are sewing along with me today, make sure to grab all your materials that you need, and let's go ahead and get started. I have all my pieces cut out. I have these two front pieces cut from, excuse me, my throat is killing me all. The crepe, the satin for the lining, and then bodice for the other lining. Both of these are cut out of that. This, which is the back piece, is cut from organza. The organza is modeled exactly after the pattern piece. And then the lace is rough cut. This lace is from bridalfabrics.com. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to do a whole video on this lace in a separate dress, my anniversary wedding dress, which should come out at the end of October. I'm doing like a whole style shoot and video for that. So it's going to be a big deal for my 7-year anniversary. And then I cut out the little mesh piece out of tulle, of course. I have all of my skirt pieces cut out of crepe and muslin. Not muslin, Lord have mercy. Crepe and satin for the lining. I'm not underlining the skirt. It's not necessary in this case. Not interfacing, just underlining, and the bodice is really, really thin, so you should not run into too many issues with that. So I'm going to go ahead and underline my bodice. If you guys need a video on how to underline in detail, I'm going to link it. I'm going to link it right there. So go ahead and click on that, watch that, and come back. And I'm going to go ahead and show a little bit of underlining here, but obviously I'm going to speed it up. I'm not going to talk through it because we need to go ahead and get this done. Okay, so I'm going to underline these, and then I'll come back and we're going to start assembling everything. Oh, I also wanted to mention before I go ahead and speed underline this, for everyone who has like inquiries for wanting to purchase any of my sewing patterns or wanting to purchase a wedding dress for me or fabric or any kind of thing like that, please don't leave it down in the comment section below because it can get missed. Or sometimes when I reply, I'm not sure why YouTube's deleting my replies to all of those inquiry comments. Not sure why, but always check my description box below this video. It will always have the information for you to go ahead and order anything that you might want to order from me. Okay, so I've got all of my pieces, excuse me. I've got all my pieces underlined here. I love being able to talk in my videos more. Since the majority of my kids are in school, it's been a lot more quiet for me to be able to talk in my videos. So anyway, obviously you hear Captain Crazy in the background. Yeah, see, I got at school. Yeah. Okay, so I've got my pieces underlined. Now, if you are working with like maybe a silk crepe or something that's a little bit more slippy than what I have here, you could go ahead and put your pieces together, pin them, and then baste them together. But I don't think I'm going to baste mine together. And I'm using a one-sided medium seam allowance as always. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take these over to my ironing table and I'm going to press them open. Okay, so we're over here at my ironing table, and I wanted to just film this real quick because I get a lot of questions about these little things. They're just, I made them out of scrap muslin and filled it with polyfill. I have a bigger one for bigger curves, and then I have one I made more pointy for areas that have like a more sharp kind of curve that need that point on it. But for this one, I'm going to use my regular one. Okay, so this is the fit of the new one, and yes, we hit the side seam with extra, which is absolutely perfect. So I'm really glad at the way it's turned out. I only have one side fitted on here just because obviously it's a dress form, so it's symmetrical. I'm really happy with the fit we have now, so I'm going to go ahead and continue with the construction of the bodice. And now I'm going to go ahead and put my mesh piece, insert my mesh piece in. And since my mesh piece does not have a hem to it, I'm going to start it about a centimeter down from the top. I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Now the reason why I placed it a centimeter below is because we still have to put the lining on here and we still have to hem it. So when it's hemmed, it should fall at the same place as the mesh piece, and it should kind of go like that. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly pin the seam allowance back so I can fit this onto the dress form and see how it looks. And I'm also going to go ahead and assemble all of the skirt pieces. So here I am connecting the princess seams of the front. So I'm connecting the side front pieces to the center front pieces. And then after I do that, I'm going to go ahead and sew all of the back skirt pieces as well. So here I am sewing down the center back seam of my skirt. And then after I sew the center back seam, then I insert the zipper. You guys know I like to insert my zipper using 2 rows of stitches on each side just to make sure that the zipper does not shift and it really secures the zipper in there just in case the first line of stitches do pop. Then I am going to sew down the princess seams of the back of the skirt as well. And I'm just making sure to keep that at a 1 centimeter seam allowance because it can get away from you when you're trying to sew really quickly. Okay, so I have my front and back skirt sewn, excuse me, and I've pinned them on. I haven't ironed out the seams or anything. I've pinned them on here and they match up nicely. There's extra in the back, obviously, because I added 3 centimeters here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this even at 1 centimeter so that when I go ahead and sew it, all I have to do is sew it at a 1 centimeter seam allowance. And that's going to make my life a lot easier. The back fits nice. I realized that I forgot to put the dip that I did in the last dress, but that's okay because I think this is pretty either way. Yeah, so it looks good. I'm going to press out everything. Well, first I'm going to make sure that I trim down this to 1 centimeter. Then I'm going to press out all my seams. And then I'm going to put the back together with the lace and everything. And then I'm going to sew the side seams. So I'm going to go ahead and press this out. And then I'll be back once I'm done pressing. I decided to do all of the rolled hem areas of the back, the organza piece, before I went ahead and attached the organza to the skirt. So I'm just going to go ahead and do at the smallest rolled hem I can. This was really irritating to me, y'all, but the longer I did it, the better I got at it. So all I can say is for this rolled hem, you just really need to just practice. And I know they do sell a rolled hem foot, so I may invest in that since I've been doing a lot of rolled hems lately. But anyway, I'm going to do the rolled hems. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and align my notches here, and I'm going to sew the back piece, the back bodice to the back skirt, and I'm going to go ahead and do that at a 1 centimeter seam allowance. After I do that, I'm going to go ahead and attach the bodice, the front bodice to the front skirt. And when you do that, you want to make sure that when you're going over the seams, that you're letting the seams lie flat so that that little illusion piece is nice and clean on the outside. Okay, so I have pressed out everything, and now I am going to start to line. I'm doing it the same way I did the last time, so I'm going to line them separately, like the back and the front, and then I'm going to put them together like a puzzle piece. And Yeah. So how I'm gonna line the front, I hope you guys can see how I'm gonna line the back is I'm going to put my back pieces down. And if you guys feel like this is moving really fast, I apologize. I have like 20 hours of footage that I had to fit into a 30-minute video. But you guys can always go to the settings and slow it down if you guys need to have it at a little bit of a slower speed, or you could just pause it. But you know, all the regular steps you hear, this is not really like a beginner's tutorial. I apologize for that. I will come out with some more beginner friendly tutorials pretty soon here for October with Halloween coming up. But you know, as far as now goes, you know, wedding dresses really aren't beginner friendly, and I apologize for that. But anyway, so after I've sewed the lining to the top of the skirt, I'm going to go ahead and understitch that seam allowance to the lining so that it doesn't flip out. And then I'm going to trim that corner there that we got when we sewed the lining. And I'm going to flip the lining onto the inside of the garment and sew the lining down to the zipper teeth. I hope that makes sense, guys. I may do a dedicated tutorial on that, how to, you know, clean finish the zipper with lining. Let me know in the comments if you guys are interested in seeing that, because I know some of my more focused videos really don't do as well as these videos. Okay, so this is what the back is currently looking like. Excuse my mess, I'm like trying to stick and move. I'm going to re-sew some new button loops on here because I don't like how the end is coming off of this one. I had to pinch in a couple of little areas here to make it lay flat to the body, and I probably have to pinch a little one in there and probably another one on this side, and I'm not worried about that because that's all going to be covered with the lace. The next thing I'm going to do is trim down the side even with the side seam of the back, of the face of the back. And then I think we are good. I'm also going to go ahead and sew the lining onto the front. I just wanted to see how this back looked, and I actually really like the way it's turning out. Now I'm going to line the front of the dress. So I'm just placing the lining and the face of the dress right sides together, and I'm sewing down the middle part of the dress first. And once I get to where the mesh is, I'm just flipping the mesh over, so I'm not sewing on the mesh, and then I am just putting right side of the lining to the right side of the seam allowance of the face, and I'm just sewing down, and then I back stitch when I get to the bottom there, and then I go on the other side and do the same thing. And I didn't show it here for sake of time, but you do want to make sure that you go back and understitch your seam allowance over to your lining at the middle part of the bodice. Now for one of the most important parts, I'm using my little bust pressing mold thing, and I'm using a pressing cloth, and I have my iron set all the way up to cotton, and I'm really pressing and steaming that cup of the bodice to really shape it to like the shape of a bust. And I'm doing that on both sides. You guys really want to make sure you're doing this. This really does make a difference. Okay, so now it is time to join the front of the dress to the back, and this is where it starts to get real complicated, y'all. So you want to have the face of the dress, you want to join that to the face of the back, and then you want to pin all the way up on the illusion panel to the face of the front. Just place pins there, and then when you place it under your machine, you want to start sewing down. And then once you get to where all of your pieces kind of meet, like where there's lining as well, you want to move the lining out of the way. You see how I'm doing this here? So you're moving it out of the way so you're not sewing over the lining, and you want to really make sure that it's tucked in out of the way, that you're not catching it in any way. And then you want to just continue down the seam, and you do that on both sides. Once the face pieces are connected at the side seams, then you want to go ahead and connect the linings at the side seams. So the way I'm doing this is I am putting my lining right sides together with my face at the bodice, and I am sewing that seam. Now you see I'm tucking a lot of the dress inside so that I can get all the way down to where my waistline seam is. And then what this does is it encloses the seam allowance of the joining seam for the organza to the face. And then once I get to the waistline seam, then I kind of shove everything all the way back out, all the way around, and then I attach the face, not the face, I'm sorry, I attach the front lining to the back lining at the side seam. Like I said, it is one hell of a puzzle, but once you do it like this, it clean finishes everything on the inside. Everything is nice and clean.
Okay, so now, excuse my couch. I'm washing my cushions, so I wasn't nut about my couch. I didn't have no cushions on. They're washing. Initially, I was going to cut out all the little appliques and place them onto here, but now I'm liking the sparseness of this. I love this lace, y'all. I said it earlier. I got it from bridalfabrics.com. Gorgeous lace. But anyway, so I am thinking I'm just going to place it on here, and then I'm just going to cut around the appliques here that touch the crepe. I think that's what I do. So this is the front. I still need to put this on. But yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to work on. And then I will be back once the lace pieces in the back are done. All we have to do at this point is resew this, resew the button loops, add buttons on this side, and do the hem. And for the hem, I'm not using horsehair. I want it to be a little bit more soft. So I'm going to just do a nice rolled hem with some lace. I have some lace ribbon kind of, yeah, I think it's called lace ribbon to finish off the inside really pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, and I'll be back.
Here I am just pinning down the front little belt piece to cover that waistline seam, and I already actually have it attached at the side seams from when it was on the dress form. So now I am just going to go ahead and slip stitch all the way top and bottom to make sure that it's nice and secure down so it's not flapping all over the place when it's being worn. After I have that secured down, I decided to use that little strip of rhinestones that I got from Joann's, and I'm going to go ahead and glue it on with E6000 glue. And I am literally gluing every little rhinestone piece, and I'm just sticking it on to the belt. I'm trying to center it as much as possible by eye, but I actually should have had some kind of guideline to make sure I was doing this straight. But I like to think that my by eye is good enough. So I did it by eye, and it took forever, but I actually really like the way it looks. I think it's like subtle glam, and I'm like here for that. So I did it all the way across the front band, and then I also put it a little bit on the where the buttons are in the back. Okay, so now I'm doing some hand finishing work. Some of the appliques still needed to be secured down, so I'm doing that flat on the table. And I'm also removing the old button loops that we put in earlier, and I'm gonna go ahead and hand sew in some new ones. And I figured out that hand sewing them, oh my God, guys, is so much easier and so much more clean looking than sewing them on machine. So I went ahead and hand sewed them down, and I did like 3 or 4 rows of stitches, hand stitches, to make sure that they're nice and secure. And what I like about the hand sewing is I can get exactly where I need to be rather than sewing by machine. It's a little bit harder to control. So make sure that if you guys are doing these button loops, get you a needle and thread and hand sew these babies down. So much easier, so much less of a headache, and it actually sews where you want it to sew. Okay, so now I'm moving on to the other side that we're going to put the buttons on, and I'm going to go ahead and heat seal that edge just to make my life so much easier. And then I'm folding over a little bit and kind of lining that up to see if it lines up. Then I take it to the ironing board and I press that crease in. And then I'm going to go ahead and sew my buttons on. Now, to sew the buttons on, obviously we need buttons. So I'm taking extra strips of crepe that I had, and I'm covering the buttons, and I just have the covering button kit that you get, that you just cut a little square, you press it in there, cut the excess off, and then put the shank part of the button on and press it down. I really like these covered buttons, but I tell you what, it's a lot easier to cover this crepe than it is to cover the satin. So I really enjoyed covering the crepe. Now that I have my buttons, I actually needed 5 of them, I believe. So I just tested the first one first. And then I took my pins and I pinned right where the button loops are, so it kind of acted like it was closed. Just so when I sew the buttons on, everything is nice and lined up. And once you finish sewing all the buttons on, the dress is actually closed in the back. And then you would just need to take the buttons, take the loops off the buttons to put it back in your dress for it. Okay, so I also decided to add a little bit of the bling on this side of the button loops. I hate these button loops, guys, but that's what I got, and I think I made it work pretty nicely. And then on this side, I'm going to finish all of the appliques. And once I've done that, I'm going to hand understitch down this armhole area because it's still rolling out a little bit. So I'm going to hand understitch it down. I'm going to try to do it as invisibly as possible. I'm going to do that on both sides, and then I'll come back when it's time to hem, and then we're all done. To close the shoulder, it's actually really easy. All you need to do is put your organza like up into where it was open at the shoulder, and then flip it inside out and sew a line of stitching there at 1 centimeter, and your shoulder is closed. Okay, so I've put her back on the dress form, and I'm really excited about the way she turned out. I think it looks really good, and we're almost done. Obviously, it doesn't close here. The bust measurement of the model who's going to be wearing this dress at our style shoot is about 1 inch smaller than the bust circumference of my dress form. So I took that in here just at the back. I didn't alter the front at all, and I hope it works out. Yeah, so this is the front. Obviously, I just turned her, but I need to give it a really good press and even out the layers and everything. I'm going to do some tailor's tacks with the seam allowances, and I'll show you that here shortly as well. And then, but the next thing I'm going to do is do the hem. I actually decided to go ahead and hem this with horsehair, but instead of using the 2-inch like I usually use, I opted to use 1/2-inch horsehair here because I wanted it to look more like a rolled hem, which it actually did turn out looking more like a rolled hem, but it was just a little bit more stiff than I wanted to. So next time I will actually spend the time doing a rolled hem for the hem of the dress. But nonetheless, I think it turned out really well, and I'm sewing the rolled hem the horsehair the same way we always do it. Okay, so to finish this dress off, I actually added flowers on either side of the neckline because I thought that it looked a little bit asymmetrical before, and so now it doesn't. And this is the dress all finished. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me with all 4 videos of this dress. I really think that I'm glad in my decision to remake this dress, especially since I'm using it for a style shoot tomorrow. So stay tuned for the little video footage of that. And I also wanted to take time out to thank a couple of my subscribers for going ahead and donating to my channel. I really appreciate you guys, and to be honest, some of these videos would not be possible without you guys, so I really appreciate you guys. And I also want to give a special thanks out to Ashley Montgomery. I really appreciate you, girl. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, check out some of these other videos, and I'll see you in my next one.